Hello and welcome. Good evening. One of India's finest and most loved citizens, Lata Mangeshkar, has died at the age of 92. Her mortal remains have now been brought to the Shivaji Park, where her last rites are to be conducted this evening. These are live shots, live visuals being brought to you from Shivaji Park. The Mumbai police has tightened security in and around the Shivaji Park area. This is in Dadar for the funeral of the veteran singer Lata Mangeshkar. The city police have issued a traffic advisory as several prominent personalities from the film industry, from politicians and other well-wishers of the late singer are expected to arrive. As you can already see on your screens, many already there waiting at the funeral site to pay their last tributes to her. A two-day national mourning is being observed in memory of the iconic singer Bharat Ratna, an icon of Indian cinema who lent her voice to some of the most glorious songs for decades. She was known as the Nightingale of India. Amitabh Bachchan, even in a blog post today, has just written that she's left us. The voice of a million centuries has left us.
As the priests prepare,
her voice now resounds in the heavens, prayers for peace and calm. The megastar was admitted to the Mumbai Breach Candy Hospital on the 8th of January after she was diagnosed with COVID-19 and pneumonia. She was taken to the ICU and was being treated for pneumonia. Though she did show some signs of improvement over the last few weeks, her condition ultimately deteriorated. She had to be placed on a ventilator and she passed this morning. Let's go across to Rohit Khilnani, who is joining us. He is at the Shivaji Park, where the last rites are going to be conducted now. Rohit, I can imagine, given her position in the Indian film industry, from politicians to actors, everybody must be there to pay their last respects right now.
Right, sir. In fact, earlier at the residence we saw Amitabh Bachchan, Javed Akhtar, Ashutosh Gowarikar, and of course several politicians, including Raj Thackeray, visiting the home to pay the last respects. This era at Shivaji Park seems more for fans and well-wishers. They have queued. I can see a queue that's at least few kilometers long, 2 to 3 kilometers long, and people waiting patiently to just waiting patiently for their turn. To go inside, they will have to go through security. They will have to go through, there are some COVID restrictions as well. So, but I can see arrangements being made by Mumbai police so that, because the Prime Minister will also be here. This is something that, the fans would want, the fans who followed the music for many, many years, would want to pay their last respect, and they couldn't ask for more. This is something, it's indeed a sad day for them, but it is also something that they would like to do and give their last respect to Lata Mangeshkar, whose music they've enjoyed for years and years.
All right, Rohit, so what exactly is expected right now, and what are the arrangements put in place by the authorities, the state, the government, the police, to ensure that everybody, because she really has touched millions, she's left behind an unparalleled body of work, scores of ardent admirers. What arrangements are in place to ensure that everybody, even the man on the street who has been touched by her work, by her music, is able to come and pay their last respects if they choose to do so?
Right. If there's a generation, and there are parents, there are grandparents, parents, and also kids watching, they would have their own favorite Lata Mangeshkar song. Like when Vishnu was interviewing Sharmila Tagore, she sang for Sharmila Tagore and she also sang for Soha. So she's obviously given her voice to generations, from Tanuja to Kajol, and filmmakers like Yash Chopra made romantic films, and these romantic films are backed by a huge number of songs. Love songs, all voiced by Lata Mangeshkar. The songs that we see actresses like Kajol, these are songs that have voice of Lata Mangeshkar, and they were immensely successful. And clearly, she was in the hospital Yesterday, Asha Bhosle, when she visited the hospital, we were told that, that pray for her. That's what Asha Bhosle said. Pray for her, and we hope she becomes better. So till yesterday, Asha Bhosle holding on to that last hope, that Lata Mangeshkar will get better.
All right, Rohit Khilnani, thank you for joining us. Also joining us on the show right now is Akshay Manwani, an author, a film historian. We have Komal Nahata, film critic, and Mukesh Tyagi, the actor, joining us. Thank you all for your time. We've just heard my colleague Rohit Khilnani talk about Lata Mangeshkar, how she's left behind an unparalleled body of work, scores of ardent admirers, and he mentioned how that, you know, it's really no surprise that you could have a situation where you have an 80-year-old grandmother and her 18-year-old granddaughter, all of them caught humming the same Lata melody, perhaps remix, perhaps not. If I could just start with getting all of your memories of Lata Mangeshkar. Akshay Manwani, to you first.
Yeah, hi Sarah, and you know, it's an honor here to you know, talk about Lata ji and her legacy, and you know, before I talk about that, my condolences to her entire family. But you know, it's such a vast body of work. I cannot put my finger down to any one song. I can tell you that, you know, my father was a very, very big fan of her work. Like in my house when I was growing up, I cannot tell you the number of times that I would have heard Ajeeb Dastan Hai Ye, you know, from Dil Apna Aur Preet Parai, or, you know, Pyar Kiya To Darna Kya, which is one of my personal favorites from Mughal-e-Azam that she sang. And, you know, the number of languages that she sang in, the kind of mood that she gave each and every song, you know, you feel sad when you listen to Lata ji sing, you feel happy when you listen to her sing. She gives a certain charm to, you know, the very famous Wahida Rahman song from Guide, Aaj Fir Jeene Ki Tamanna Hai, Aaj To Marne Ka Irada Hai. That it's absolutely incredible, you know, to sit back and appreciate what she did for heroines. You know, these were faces in front of the camera, and you know, like your colleague Sunil Khilnani just said that, Rohit Khilnani just said that, you know, you think of the Yash Chopra romantic stories, and one has to wonder where would they be, what would they be without her voice, you know. And I would say that for many of those memorable actors that she sang for, whether it was Wahida ji, whether it was for Kajol in DDLJ in the 90s, whether it was for Wahida ji again in Rang De Basanti, right from the time that she sang in the 1940s to very, very recently, I mean, the kind of impact that she's had on a nation, you know, she transcended demographic, genre. I cannot bracket her and say that she was only a singer of a certain kind of mood songs, right?
Correct.
Her legacy is vast.
All right. Komal Nahata, you know, when we talk about Lata Mangeshkar's work, her body of work, it's you know, more than just the sweet, lilting, dulcet notes. There was also a stronghold on the language, the right pronunciation and the enunciation, for instance. When you listen to her music, she really makes it sound effortless. But was it, or is this something she has had to work on? It shows her commitment and her dedication over the years to maintain a hold at the, you know, pinnacle of the industry for decades.
Definitely. She understood the importance of clarity. None of her songs you have to struggle to understand what she has sung. Whereas there are many singers who are not very clear. So you have to strain your ears to understand what is that word, one word. But in her songs, you could hear every word, and every word was wonderfully pronounced. And I know she worked very hard, very, very hard on getting the right pronunciation, the right stress. So I'm sure it took a lot of effort, but she was such a genius that she made it appear effortless. That is the mark of a genius, that how much ever you prepare and how much ever you put inside something, whatever effort you put, when it is being heard or seen on the screen, it should look effortless. And I think she excelled in that.
Mukesh Tyagi, we just want to first go across to you for your memories of Lata Mangeshkar at this point of time.
You see, Lata Mangeshkar, we were born with the songs humming because she represents a saga. I think right from Madhubala to Kareena Kapoor to Priyanka Chopra, even very recently she sang in 2019. So we have been literally born with the music bombardment in our house. My mother was very fond of her music. My father was very fond of her music. My sister even now sings her compositions. And to so much so, when you hear Lata Mangeshkar, you suddenly realize that to all the singers, I mean, she's iconic because as Komal Nahata mentioned, she used to work so hard that it would infuse in your DNA so effortlessly, and it will become immortal. That is the beauty and the synergy she brought into the film. And, my memory goes back with the film Phase 3, where she lent a song for Madhur Bhandakar's movie, Kitne Ajeeb Rishte Hain Yahan Par. उस जमाने में बड़ी मुश्किल से लता जी मानती थी कि I would lend my music to any film. She became extremely reluctant to start singing, and it was a rare luck of those directors and producers who would manage to get, and maybe it was a personal proximity of Madhur with Lata ji that she agreed to lend her voice. So I've been lucky to hear in person her recording. So that was my memory, limited memory. I feel that I wanted to spend a great deal of time, but unfortunately I couldn't. And as far as Lata ji goes, Lata ji was ridiculed for her talaffuz. When she met Dilip Kumar ji first time, and Dilip Kumar ji बोले कहाँ की लड़की है, बोले मराठी लड़की है, बोले इसके तलफ़ुज़ पे काम करो, ये तो मराठी अंदाज में गाएगी. So she has been ridiculed. She did not sing for O.P. Nair. I think R.D. Burman also had a little tiff with her. From 57 to 62, she was not given any song by R.D. Burman. For the reasons, I think she was too busy, and he wanted Asha to sing, but he could not release in the film. And finally, Lata Mangeshkar's song was released. So this was the might of Lata Mangeshkar, and I think it was a pure divinity. She was a divine, she was blessed by the divine, and no wonder she has been hit with the tsunamis of awards, Filmfare Awards, National Awards, Bharat Ratna. She was the first singer to perform in a Royal Albert Hall. The French government gave her the Legion Award. I think she was so simple in her nature and so demeanor. She did not allow her fame to corrupt her internal core personality of simplicity. She will wear 9 feet dhoti, white dhoti. In contrast, if you see the paradox, Kishore Kumar was like his calisthenics on the stage was known and he used to entertain. But Lata ji, very steadfast, not too much of movement except her hands here and there, and she was mesmerized the entire crowd. So she did not need any support. Her voice was so powerful. I was with the Rajesh Roshan ji, and I said, whenever I heard think about Lata ji, I get goosebumps. This kind of reverence she earned, and it is unprecedented. Despite the fact a lot of critics say that was the domination time of Noorja, Suraiya, and many other singers. But Lata ji came out of that, and people said that she tried to destabilize many other new talent. I think it is completely bullshit. And so a lot of people tried to troll and malign her image. But Lata ji is Lata ji. I think we have lost a kind of a universe of music. And this music, I don't think will ever come. She'll remain immortal in our heart for all the times to come. And I think we need to set up a music industry in the name of Lata ji, because she is a perfect institution on any music. You want to learn music, listen to Lata ji. She's a perfect institution. So all the singers, I think she dominated her time, and that shows exceptional talent India has been so proud of. No wonder Mr. Modi has given her homage. It was such a mutual admiration. They loved each other. And she had a great amount of nationalism. She sang Vande Mataram, Ae Mere Watan Ke Logo. Recently she sang Main Chukna Nahi. But all kinds of, she was inspired by Mahatma Gandhi's Savarkar and Bal Gangadhar Tilak. That was in her DNA. She sang free concert for Jawans of the army. And no wonder she is getting the best, I think, protocol in terms of all the 3 wings of the army there to give her the half-mast national flag is flown. So I think this kind of reverence is exceptional, and people are coming in this time. And I think Corona has taken a toll. But although she had a long year, 92 years, I think she lived her life happily, and she had a very accomplished life.
And she gives us all millions with her soulful music, which we will continue to sing and hum for years to come. We're going to go in for a short break. If I can just ask you all to stay on, we'd like to take some of our advertisements and come back to the mortal remains of Lata Mangeshkar at Shivaji Park right now, where the last rites are to be conducted this evening. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Legendary singer Lata Mangeshkar, born in pre-independent India, died this morning after weeks of hospitalisation, bringing an end to a splendid, decorated career in playback singing and Bollywood. She was 92. The cremation is about to take place right now with full state honours at Mumbai's iconic Shivaji Park, visuals of which are playing out on your screen right now. Prime Minister Modi will be present. Already Shivaji Park filled to the brim, from everyone from the Chief Minister to former Chief Ministers to actors, stars to the common man, as Lata Mangeshkar has had an impact on millions, left behind an unparalleled body of work, scores of ardent admirers from the biggest names in politics and the film industry to the common man on the street, all of them gathering at Shivaji Park, where around 2,000 square feet of the park's area has now been barricaded. You can see those barricades on your screen for the cremation proceedings. People have begun arriving at the park since 1 p.m. to witness the funeral of the legendary singer who touched so many lives with her music. She's been a recipient of the Bharat Ratna, the Padma Vibhushan, the Padma Bhushan, the Dada Saheb Phalke Award. She was an icon of Indian cinema, having sung playback for an extensive list of Hindi films. Let's go across to Rohit Khilnani, who is at the Shivaji Park. He joins us right now. And Rohit, we get a glimpse, a small glimpse perhaps of the millions of lives that Lata Mangeshkar touched with her music by the huge crowds that have shown up at the Shivaji Park today.
Sarah, you know, this is a huge crowd trying to enter from different corners of Shivaji Park. Shivaji Park is a very huge area. It covers quite a few kilometers, but but very tight security arrangements by Mumbai police. You know, even media finding it extremely difficult to cover this because most of the roads are cordoned off, mainly because Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on his way and should be here any moment. And every VIP is here. The governor just reached here, we are told, and of course the Chief Minister is expected, and so are many other politicians. I did see, in fact, I just saw Vidya Balan go in. So a lot of people from film fraternity, people from politics and different walks of life, along with the Aam Aadmi, the Janta that loved Lata Mangeshkar. So that's the one good thing is that they also, along with the VVIPs, get to pay their last respect. These are the people who have enjoyed Lata Mangeshkar songs for decades and decades. And now I can see security, just all we can see is here, Sarah, is tight security, roads cordoned off, no movement is allowed. Even media is on different sides of Shivaji Park, but nobody's allowed to go in. There are very few crews who got to go in earlier, but these are arrangements for the visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
And Prime Minister Modi has arrived. The visuals of Prime Minister Modi arriving at the Shivaji Park right now to be present there personally for the last rites of the iconic Lata Mangeshkar. Prime Minister Modi had said that he would be present there, and he joins many of the others, luminaries, politicians to stars, Mumbaikars, all of them at the Shivaji Park today to pay their last respects to Lata Mangeshkar, whose mortal remains now lie at the Shivaji Park.
It is just apt.
I want to go back to Akshay Manwani, author, film historian, and Komal Nehta, film critic, who join us Akshay Manwani, I want to just pick up the visuals we're seeing on our screens right now are of Prime Minister Modi paying his last respects, laying a wreath there at the site for the last rites. Akshay Manwani, as these visuals play out on our screen, if I could just ask you to pick up from where Mukesh Tyagi left off. He mentioned that interesting little tidbit which I think is important to share, especially for the younger generation of Indians who probably only know Lata Mangeshkar when she was at the height, which was for many, many decades. But as Mukesh Tyagi pointed out, there was a point of time where perhaps she wasn't really embraced by the industry, and not everybody had confidence in her, and she'd initially been rejected for having a thin voice.
Yes, absolutely, Sarah. Early years, the 1940s when she came in, some of the producers had concerns about, they said ki bahut patli awaaz hai. They said, questions were raised about her talaffuz, as Mr. Tyagi very correctly said. And I think in that sense, it's very important to note, I mean, we can put all these superlatives, call her the nightingale, the person with the sweetest voice that we've heard. And I think even that would be insufficient. I'd rather say that, her story, besides all the awards and the honors that she received, is also a story of immense courage. Here was someone who at a very young age lost her father. She was only about 12 years. Her father was, running a musical theatre company, and he passed on while she was still very young. And she found her way into the world of, Marathi theatre and Marathi films at, while she was just a teenager, 15, 16 years old. And from there, she enters the world of Hindi cinema, which is in the late 40s, So from there on, just while you are a teenager, you're coming into a world, an industry which is different from your original industry, which was the world of Marathi cinema, right? And for her to succeed, for her to provide for her family, I mean, she said this multiple times that, my only concern was to provide for my 4 other siblings and my mother, right? And for her, her music was like, her dedication. She was devoted to it. She fell out with, as Mr. Tyagi said, she had her tiffs with music composers. She survived. I mean, I cannot think of another woman from her time having those kind of battles and going on to survive. You think of heroines, and the moment they would get married, they would find themselves out of favor with producers. But Lata ji, yes, she was a face behind the camera. I mean, she continued from strength to strength, decade after decade. She had a disagreement with Mohammed Rafi, the famous playback singer, over royalties. She insisted that singers should get royalties. In that sense, she was pioneering, right? She insisted on a separate category for playback singers getting Filmfare Awards, which, she won, I think, for her film Madhumati, Ajare Pardesi, 1959. So in all these sense, she was a trailblazer also. It's inadequate for us to sit back and just, pay our respects to her brilliant singing career across languages, not just Hindi films. But hers is also a tale of courage in an India which was not as woke as it is today. And for her to shatter the kind of glass ceiling that was there in the film industry at that time, we really ought to, tip our hat to this incredible woman.
Absolutely. It's a story of grit and of overcoming the odds. And then to think that she did playback for several generations of Hindi film heroines, from Madhubala to Meena Kumari, Rekha, Hema Malini, from Dimple Kapadia to Preeti Zinta. And that's not all. She's even sung duets with male singers across the ages: Kishore Kumar, Mohammad Rafi, Sonu Nigam, Gurdas Maan. And it all started with, a fight and wanting to provide for her family. And I want to just go across, touch upon once again on the visuals that we're seeing on our screens. I think it shows, Lata Mangeshkar, also the great unifier, because here you can see politicians across the board, here united actors across the board, the common man, all of them coming together for Lata Mangeshkar's last rites. Prime Minister Modi just a few minutes ago meeting with the Chief Minister of the Shiv Sena, a former ally. They've gone through a bitter divorce, but of course everyone, this is not a time for raising those issues. This is a time to come together in memory and to pay homage to Lata Mangeshkar. Komal Nehta, another prize trivia has it that she was the inspiration behind Raj Kapoor's 1978 film Satyam Shivam Sundaram, that he even wanted to cast her perhaps in the lead role.
Yes, we've heard of that. But she was so dedicated and she was so focused that she knew she's here to sing and to entertain people with her singing. So obviously, she turned down the offer. She declined the offer because she was hell-bent on singing and only singing. And I think it was a very brave decision because anybody could have fallen prey to it. Finally, you're coming in front of the camera. The voice that has entertained millions and millions of Indians and millions of Asians and millions of people across the world, for that person to be offered a role and for that person to be declining, obviously it speaks volumes for her courage as well as for her talent, because she knew that she was born to entertain through singing and not through any other form of art.
And I want to just ask, interestingly, I think it was T.M. Krishna, the Karnataka vocalist, the musician, the author, the activist, who had said that through the decades, what's interesting, Komal Nehta, is that Lata Mangeshkar has aged, but her voice somehow never became old, and that really is the paradox.
It was God's gift, according to me. It's not without reason that we refer to her as Ma Saraswati. Saraswati Sakshat unme basti thi. She was no less than Goddess Saraswati, and I think, yes, you said it, that her voice never aged. That is why at 60 and 70 and 80, she sang for heroines who were fit to be or who were as old as her granddaughters would be. And nobody ever said that the voice doesn't suit this heroine. The old Lata Mangeshkar's voice suited the youngest of the heroines. So I think that was God's blessing. You cannot, how much ever care you take of your voice, but if your voice just doesn't age, there has to be some supreme power behind you, and that, I think, was Goddess Saraswati.
And Mr. Tyagi, Mukesh Tyagi, interestingly, despite her age, talking about not aging, she, for one, even in her 90s, continued to have a Twitter account. She kept with the times. She was ahead of the times and always kept with the times.
Absolutely, I agree with you. But, there was a bad time in her life as her throat had become very flat. And she was advised by her guru that you should keep quiet for 6 months. And she did not sing for 1 year, as a matter of fact, because her voice had gone flat and it started crackling. I think that's a piece of the news which Komal can vouch for it. And then she bounced back and she never gave up. And, so much so, Hridayath Mangeshkar had, I think, given some kind of insurance for her throat. And that's very rare it happens. I think Rajnikant is another actor who has insured his voice. So Lataji's, I think she never gave up. She was a fighter because she came from a very, very basic middle-class society. She struggled, she traveled in trains. And what you rightly said is she maintained her Twitter and she has been extremely active. And I've been reading her Twitters all the time. So she was always a young, old woman who remained young by heart, who remained and her entire disposition to the world was very youngish, and she was very close to the cricket. She used to love watching cricket. She used to watch World Cup. No wonder she did a free concert for the World Cup cricketers. So she was all over, and no wonder today we can see the humongous crowd which has come very, very organically. Prime Minister Modi left his election campaign in the middle of election campaign. 10th of February is the election in Western Uttar Pradesh. He left that busy schedule and flown down to Shivaji Park for giving his homages to Lataji. I think itself speaks humongous. And when Lataji called him up, he said, when I saw you, Modi ji, that you touched your mother's feet, and I was so charged up that I sent one of the persons to meet your mother to seek her blessings. You know, she was so compassionate. I think her simplicity, she did not drain out her energy. She focused only on music, new music. No wonder she refused many film roles, and she was very unhappy. When
All right.
at the age of 13, she was asked to do a Marathi film, and she didn't want to do it. So she was not very, looking for glare and glittering presence. She was completely devoted. No wonder she was a Saraswati of music.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Tyagi, Akshay Manwani and Komal Nehta for joining us with your thoughts, your views tonight as we, as a nation, bid goodbye to Lata Mangeshkar. Again, visuals on your screen for our viewers just joining us are of the last rites that are about to begin for India's Nightingale, Lata Mangeshkar. And we have everyone, Prime Minister Modi, who was just there at the Shivaji grounds, along with the Chief Minister of the state, along with stars to the common man, all of them gathering at the Shivaji Park to pay their last respects. We also have Aman Ali Bangash joining us, the well-known musician, the Indian classical musician who plays the sarod. Aman, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. This is a difficult day, especially for you and for musicians like you. Your thoughts when you first heard that Lata Mangeshkar, who we know has been unwell for a while, finally passed this morning.
Well, honestly, I feel very honored, and I feel very humbled that I can speak here for such a great lady who I think was Ma Saraswati. I have not seen Ma Saraswati, but her voice was just like as if you can hear Ma Saraswati sing. And for me and my family, it's a big loss, is because we knew them very well, knew Lataji very well. Adinath Bhai, who's very close, who in fact was learning sarod from my father. So I had a lot of opportunities to meet her, take her blessings. I met her at the age of 9, I think, for the first time. And then many times she's been to her house, we've been to her place in Mumbai. And I think it's the biggest loss. We talk about being an Indian classical musician, we talk about Indian classical music being, the real culture of India, which might be true. But film music, and especially Lataji's music, was the real culture of our country. Everyone has grown up listening to her songs. And she could sing in anybody's, she would fit a girl at 12 or a person at 80. So she was a blessed soul. And I think the most amazing part today, what I'm seeing on television, is that our country's Prime Minister ji has gone and paid his tribute. I mean, that for a musician is a very big thing. And today the whole nation, I think, there'll be nobody like her. There was never anyone like her. And there can never be anyone like her. I think we lost a very big jewel today. And India lost one of its big, what do you say, the Kohinoor of our country.
And Aman Ali Bangash, as a musician, what are the lessons perhaps that you have taken away that others who are in this field can take away when you hear about her dedication, her discipline? What can you take away from her legacy?
Firstly, honestly, Zara, I feel she was a self-made person. She did everything on her own. She kept the whole family together. And the biggest thing what I've learned from her, of a person of that stature, was humility. She was a very humble person, a very caring, loving person. She never saw who's who and spoke to the person. She spoke to everybody, a very fun-loving person, a very educated person. She knew everything as about sports, about movies. So for musicians like us, like beginners like us, we feel that, wow, a person like this can be such a humble person. There's so much to learn from her. I mean, there's so much to learn. And there's so much of music that she's left behind. I mean, most of the songs are so difficult that she sung. I mean, as a musician, I can never produce those songs. But as I said, I have not seen Ma Saraswati. But if there was a Ma Saraswati, it would have been Lataji, for sure.
Ali Bangash, thank you for joining us
this
evening and sharing your thoughts. We're going to go in for a short break. We'll be back on the other side. We're of course going to stay on the last rites about to be performed for, as India says, farewell to India's Nightingale. Welcome back. We are currently watching on your screens right now the last rites for India's Nightingale, Lata Mangeshkar, about to begin any point of time this evening. Her mortal remains currently lying at the Shivaji Park in Mumbai, and as you can see on your screens right there, the lyricist Javed Akhtar, everyone from the topmost state politicians, from the chief minister to the biggest stars of the industry, all of them have shown up in person to pay their last respects. Prime Minister Modi also was present, put a wreath at the last remains of Lata Mangeshkar, and he sat by the side of the Maharashtra Chief Minister as they paid their last respects to Lata Mangeshkar, the colossal vocalist, really a vocalist who dominated playback singing in Bollywood for nearly 3/4 of a century. She passed away in Mumbai this morning, Sunday morning, the 6th of February. She was 92. Prime Minister Modi, who arrived in Mumbai to be present at the funeral, said he was anguished beyond words. He wrote that on Twitter, saying that the kind and caring Lata Didi has left us and leaves a void in our nation that cannot be filled. Rohit Khilnani is at the Shivaji Park, where Rohit, we can see long lines of people, everyone from the top stars to top politicians to the common man, lining up to pay their last respects, as Prime Minister Modi said, for Lata Mangeshkar, who has left a void that cannot be filled.
Absolutely, Sarah. This place, Shivaji Park, now becomes more iconic because this is where this will be remembered. This is the place where Lata Mangeshkar's last rites were held, right in the middle of the park. And of course, the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, also is inside right now. You can see major police security, police cars, and of course, fans are getting to pay their last respects as well, along with the VVIPs and VIPs. I just did see Vidya Balan and Siddharth Roy Kapoor enter. They all are going to pay their last respects. Earlier, we also Mr. Amitabh Bachchan, Javed Akhtar, Ashutosh Govarikar. These are people who worked with Lata Mangeshkar for many years. They went to the residence, and what's really something, Sarah, is that the people behind me. This is a long queue of at least 2 to 3 kilometers just to go inside, and people waiting patiently. These are people who also were fans of Lata Mangeshkar, made Lata Mangeshkar the star that she is by enjoying and listening to her songs, and she was all about her fans. This place is about 20-30 minutes from her residence in South Mumbai. An extremely sad day yesterday, after Asha Bhosle came out of the hospital and spoke to the media, said we are hoping the condition improves, and we request all of you to pray for Lata Mangeshkar as a sister, holding on to that last hope that people will pray and there will be a miracle. Sadly, this morning we heard that Lata Mangeshkar is no more. She did have a very cordial relationship with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. We saw them exchanging tweets at very regular occasions on both their birthdays, on Diwali, on Holi. So also talk about changing with the times and being available on Twitter at the age of 92. I did ask her team once that is Lata Mangeshkar someone who tweets by herself. They confirmed to me and said every word that she said that you've read on Twitter is by Lata Mangeshkar. So one rarely got a chance to interview her. It happens once in a lifetime, so it did happen once in a lifetime for me as well. A very affectionate, a very loving personality. That's what came across. I also heard Gulzar Saab talking about it, A.R. Rahman talking about her. Starting from Naushad, moving on to working with musicians like Jatin Lalit, Nadeem Shravan, and also A.R. Rahman. Yash Chopra is someone who made a career out of making great romantic movies. and all those romantic movies had songs by Lata Mangeshkar, be it Chandni, Lamhe, Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge. So she sang for Madhubala and she sang for Kajol, she sang for generations, and that's why we all live in times when we got to hear Lata Mangeshkar, and I think we all are extremely fortunate.
That's right. The visuals, I just want to inform our viewers that the funeral is about to begin. We have Lata Mangeshkar being cremated in Mumbai this evening, that is Sunday evening, with full state honours. There's actually 2 days of national mourning that has been announced and declared for her. So the national flag has been flying at half-mast all day starting today. We also have Sohit joining us. Sohit, what has the mood been like? You've been speaking to average Mumbaikars during the day since this news first broke this morning. Many regular folk. It's not just the stars and the politicians who've shown up. There's huge crowds, as Rohit Kilnani has been reporting, long queues waiting outside, trying to get entry into the Shivaji Park to pay their last respects. When you've been speaking to regular Mumbaikars, what have they been saying about how they've been affected by her passing today? She was also really from Maharashtra, so at heart she was a Maharashtrian.
Well, that's right, Sarah. So, in fact, on Sunday, usually there isn't much crowd on the streets of Mumbai, but today is very different. Despite there being COVID, despite several things being happening, we see a huge crowd who has come out just to pay tribute to one of the greatest musician and singer of our time, Bharat Ratna Lata Mangeshkar. So I have been speaking to a lot of people since morning, and this is happening when I am inside Shivaji Park. And while the process of cremation is going on with full state honours, what I can tell you is that there is still a huge crowd over here. We also saw people crying, and at the same time, people have been saying a lot of things since morning. They have been saying that how their Lata Mangeshkar not only inspire and help them, but generations in their family, and how they have been following her work. And one of the things that one of the person told me, which I still remember, and one thing that stuck to me is that from Jawaharlal Nehru to Narendra Modi, Lata Mangeshkar affected everyone. So there are very few people about whom we can say something like that, that from the first Prime Minister to the current Prime Minister, everyone
So
was affected.
hold that thought for a second. Could you just hold that thought for a second?
गोधूली बेला और
All right, and Rohit Khilnani also joining us now at the Shivaji Park. Rohit, you have with you people who have taken time out of their weekend to make it to the Shivaji Park on this day, despite COVID, gathering here in crowds to pay their last respects. Have you had a chance to speak with them, to ask them why, what brought them here, what dragged them here?
Right. आप मुझे बता रहे थे आप अंधेरी से आए हैं शिवाजी पार्क, क्या ऐसी बात थी लता दीदी के बारे में जो आपको लगा आप ऑल द वे यहाँ आए और उन्हें लास्ट रिस्पेक्ट पे करें? क्या पसंद था लता दीदी के बारे में?
शी इज़ नोन एज अ नाइटिंगेल ऑफ द म्यूजिक इंडस्ट्री, और उनकी ऐसी आवाज़ शायद परमात्मा और किसी को अपने इंडिया में नहीं है मेरे हिसाब से.
बिल्कुल.
शी इज़ नोन इन द एंटायर वर्ल्ड. जैसा अमिताभ बच्चन जी ने रिसेंटली मैंने देखा उनका इंटरव्यू, उन्होंने बोला हमारे इंडिया में एक ताजमहल और दूसरा लता मंगेशकर जी. आपको कहाँ भी दुनिया में नहीं मिलेगा.
बिल्कुल सही. आप जाते जाते आप जा रहे हैं, मैं आप लोग को रोकूंगा नहीं ज़्यादा समय के लिए. कौन सा गाना बताना चाहेंगे अगर सारा देश देख रहा है? कौन सा ऐसा गाना लता दीदी का जो आप गुनगुनाते हुए आज घर जाएंगे?
ऐ मेरे वतन के लोगो, राइट फ्रॉम माई चाइल्डहुड इज़ माई सन मिस्टर जसवीर सिंह. जैसा भी हमारे स्कूल में इंडिपेंडेंस डे या रिपब्लिक डे रहता है, हर कोई सुनता है ऐ मेरे वतन के लोगो, और वो गाना सुन के आँख में पानी आ जाता है. ऐ मेरे वतन के लोगों, ज़रा आँख में भर लो पानी, ज़रा याद करो उनकी कुर्बानी.
बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. थैंक यू वेरी मच हमसे बात करने के लिए. As you saw, everyone has their favorite Lata Mangeshkar song. All these people come from different places of Mumbai to this to central Mumbai where Shivaji Park is, and everybody has their favorite Lata Mangeshkar song. Sarah, everybody has their, he did watch an interview of Amitabh Bachchan, and clearly a somber and a sad day and a sad journey for all these fans back home.
The acclaimed singer Lata Mangeshkar breathed her last this morning at the Breach Candy Hospital in Mumbai. She was 92. The singer, called the Nightingale of India, is now being laid to rest at Mumbai's Shivaji Park with full state honours. Her body, her mortal remains, which lay in Shivaji Park, brought to Shivaji Park around 5 p.m, covered with the Indian flag, the tricolour, full state honours for her. 2 days of mourning declared across India, and in Maharashtra, 1 day of mourning. Everything will stay closed on Monday. Prime Minister Modi was also present there to pay homage to Lata Mangeshkar, who belonged to a musical family. Her father, a well-known Marathi musician and theatre artist. She in fact was first tutored by her father at the age of 5, and truly has an inspirational story. She had an early struggle to establish herself in the 1940s in the film industry, and there are stories that have been shared by many who she has worked with about how she would take a BST bus in the early days and travel from her home in South Mumbai to meet Naushad Ali at his home or studios in Khar West, hoping for a singing break under the legendary music maker's baton. And in the end, she went on to dominate the industry when it comes to playback singers for decades. Eventually, she sang in different Indian languages with aplomb. She sang non-film songs, and her range really encompassed everything from classical,
the Indian tricolor,
to tragic,
which was
to melodious, to melancholic, to mischievous. All of this depending on the composer, depending on the heroine, depending on the song situation. So, Lata Mangeshkar's last rites being performed at the Shivaji Park right now in Mumbai as the sun sets. Earlier in the day, Prime Minister Modi arrived from New Delhi to Mumbai to pay his last respects. The top Bollywood stars also present there as Lata Mangeshkar's funeral was to begin. The Chief Minister of the state, Sharad Pawar, Piyush Goyal, all of them being seen seated there. Shah Rukh Khan, Amitabh Bachchan, Shah Rukh Khan paying his last respects after Prime Minister Modi put a wreath at the last remains of Lata Mangeshkar's body. Mumbai coming together right now to pay their last respects. The legendary singer Lata Mangeshkar, who was born in pre-independent India, died this morning after weeks of hospitalisation, brought to an end a splendid, decorated career and era in playback singing in Bollywood. She was 92. Her funeral is taking place in Mumbai right now with full state honours at the iconic Shivaji Park in Mumbai. Prime Minister Modi was present to pay his last respects. 2,000 square feet of the park's area has been barricaded and it is filled to the brim, as you can see on your screens right now, filled to the brim with people who have arrived, shown up from across Mumbai to pay their last respects. People in fact started arriving at 1 in the afternoon to witness the funeral of this legendary singer. Also present, of course, her younger sister, Asha Bhosle, also a singer. Other family members could be seen joining their hands while authorities saluted the late megastar as they brought her body to Shivaji Park for her last rites.
The words say.
Earlier in the day, Bollywood stars including Amitabh Bachchan, Anupam Kher, Javed Akhtar, Sanjay Leela Bhansali were among those who visited her home to pay their last respects, paying their last respects for a recipient of the Bharat Ratna, the Padma Vibhushan, the Padma Bhushan, the Dada Saheb Phalke Awards. Lata Mangeshkar, really an icon of Indian cinema, having sung playback for an extensive list of Hindi films. Of course, among her most iconic songs is that patriotic composition, "Ae Mere Watan Ke Logo," the song that commemorated Indian soldiers who died in the 1962 war with China. The central government has announced a 2-day state mourning on the demise of this legendary singer, this icon, India's Nightingale. The national flag is flying at half-mast and it will continue to do so till the 7th of February throughout India. Lata Mangeshkar belonged to a prominent musical family. She also composed music as well as produced a handful of films and was known as the Nightingale of India. Lata Mangeshkar died in Mumbai's Breach Candy Hospital this morning at the age of 92. She was taken to the ICU or the intensive care unit on the 8th of January after testing positive for COVID. She had also been treated for pneumonia. Over the past few weeks, she had shown some signs of improvement. However, this morning, hospital authorities announced that she had been put back on the ventilator after her death deteriorated. And they announced this morning that she had passed.
अब सत्ता में विलीन होने की ये रीति पूरे मंत्रोच्चार और विधियों के साथ संपन्न हो रही है। इसके साक्ष्य बन रहे हैं हम सभी, आप सभी।
Thousands of candles can be lighted from a single candle. Lata Didi was that candle that came and shone on the horizon of Bollywood music.
So what you can see are live visuals from Shivaji Park. The last rites are happening at Shivaji Park of iconic singer Lata Mangeshkar, Bharat Ratna. This is indeed an extremely sad day for all those who've enjoyed Lata Mangeshkar's songs over the years and over decades actually. I spoke to many people here who have come to Shivaji Park. I still can see a long queue outside. What you're watching on your television screens are visuals of priests performing puja for the last rites of Lata Mangeshkar. There's a queue of still after all this, there's a queue of 2-3 kilometers to go inside Shivaji Park. And these people are waiting patiently because they say they've enjoyed her songs over the years. The least they can do is go and pay their last respects. And these are people who have come from all over. These are people who have come from all over the city. I spoke to someone who in fact said while going back we will be humming the song "Hai Mere Watan Ke Logo." That was his favorite song. So everybody has a Lata Mangeshkar song, favorite Lata Mangeshkar song. What we also saw yesterday was Asha Bhosle, sister of Lata Mangeshkar, holding on to that one hope that, you know, that's where she said, we want people to pray, and hope there's a miracle. So clearly this morning we got the sad news that Lata Mangeshkar is no more. What you're watching are last rites at Shivaji Park. Shivaji Park, and a very popular place, now will also be known as the place where Lata Mangeshkar's last rites took place. This is where a lot of VIP movement is there. The Prime Minister is inside. Apart from that, VIPs and, you know, we are film stars, Vidya Balan is inside. These normal people who enjoyed Lata Mangeshkar's music, people who were fans of Lata Mangeshkar, they also got to pay their respects. That was the arrangement planned by the Maharashtra government. What you're watching is the ceremony just before the cremation takes place. It's an extremely somber and a sad moment for fans of Lata Mangeshkar.
Well, one of India's finest and most loved citizens, Lata Mangeshkar, has died at the age of 92. Her funeral is now taking place, the last rites taking place at Shivaji Park in Mumbai. Her mortal remains earlier on brought over here. The last rites now being conducted. Mumbai police has tightened security in and around the Shivaji Park area in the Dadar part of Mumbai for this funeral that you now see of Lata Mangeshkar. The city police have issued a traffic advisory as several prominent personalities from the film industry, politicians and other well-wishers of the late singer were arriving at the funeral site to pay their last tribute to her. A two-day national mourning is being observed in memory of Lata Mangeshkar. She was a Bharat Ratna, an icon of Indian cinema, who lent voice to some of the most glorious songs for decades. She was known as the Nightingale of India. Amitabh Bachchan wrote, "She has left us, the voice of a million centuries has left us. Her voice resounds now in the heavens, prayers for peace and calm." The megastar was admitted to Mumbai's Breach Candy Hospital on the 8th of January after she was diagnosed with COVID and pneumonia. She was taken to the intensive care unit on the 8th of January and was also being treated for pneumonia. Though she did show some signs of an improvement, her condition ultimately deteriorated. She had to be placed on a ventilator, and unfortunately this morning she passed away. From an early hit in 1945 in the song Aayega Aane Wala in the film Mahal, Lata Mangeshkar soared to the greatest heights, lending her voice to some of the most iconic Bollywood productions. Among her most iconic songs, she sang Mere Watan Ke Logo to remember Indian soldiers killed in 1962 It brought Prime Minister Nehru to tears. It was in fact performed at the beating retreat ceremony this year, which marks the end of Republic Day. Let's go back to my colleague Rohit Khillani. Rohit, a huge gathering of her well-wishers, her fans, political leaders, leaders in Bollywood. Give us an idea of what you've been seeing over the last hour or so.
Vishnu, Shivaji Park, an iconic place, now will be known as the place where Lata Mangeshkar was cremated. The last rites happened here. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also inside. And so are a lot of VIPs, along with the fans who've enjoyed Lata Mangeshkar's music for years. I can try and show you some visuals. All you see are police vans, and because this is now obviously there's a high security area. These people standing on the small wall on your screens right now, Vishnu, are people who are trying to get a glimpse. These people didn't get to go inside, so they are trying to get a glimpse. It's extremely difficult for them to see anything from here, but still they have come from different places, and also in fact they were all wondering why, after standing in the queue for such a long time, they didn't get to go inside. It's because also there's a lot of VIP moments, and of course, since this was planned just today that it will happen at Shivaji Park. This is as much arrangement as Mumbai police could make and could do. These are police vans on your screen right now. And the road that leads from here is the road from where Prime Minister Narendra Modi will go back to the airport.
Right. I'm just going to go across to Ramesh Sippi, who joins us now as well. Sir, it's wonderful to have you with us on this program, Mr. Sippi. Ramesh Sippi, one of Bollywood's finest producers and film directors. It is such a sad moment for millions of people in India and indeed around the world, because she was an international celebrity, well recognized for what she achieved. What are some of your favorite moments in having worked with Lata Mangeshkar in the past?
Yes, there are plenty, but we shall just talk about a few. Of course, my admiration, my love for her songs, her talent is beyond words, as is everyone's. And my memory goes back to 1951 when I was 7 years old, and she sang for my father in a film, Saza, which was being made at that time, and then it was released, and that song became a huge big hit. Tum na jaane kis jahan mein kho gaye. It was haunting, and I remember it so much. Maybe it was the first thing that drove me into, but she was so good. I wasn't allowed to enter. I was feeling so nervous too, to want to be with her, because she was singing so beautifully. But that was the time when full orchestras played with the singer. Anyway, that was a beautiful moment. I did try to see her from behind my father's back, trying to watch her and in awe of her, because she just sung the song. And she was not, she was into film just a couple of years. I think the first song was in Mahal. She sang Mahal in 49. Yep. So 51 is not that far away from that. But then, since then, and all the films after that, some of the films that my father made, quite a few songs which were hits. And then I started my career, and in my very first film, Andaz, she sang the opening song with Hema Malini and Shami Kapoor. And I remember being in the room with her and talking to her and fascinated by her. And I told her this little story, and she was so fascinated. But I didn't see you. But her memory was really good. Next time we met, she did remind me of that. Yes, I do remember. So she was a very warm person. She was not overly communicative. She was quiet. She looked I mean, she would like to be by herself, and she was concentrating on the work.
Yep.
And I explained to her what the spirit of things. But it was actually in the song, Shole's song, Jab Tak Hai Jaan, where she sang for Hema Malini when she danced to save the life of Dharamji, who was tied up.
Yep.
And it was, as we spoke about it, the situation, she understood it, she nodded, she did say that she, after we did when she understood the whole situation, she sang it so beautifully. But she called me in after that and asked me,
Yep.
do you think that was what you wanted? And I said, it's absolutely perfect.
Yep.
But I'll do one more.
Okay.
She was such a perfectionist, she wanted to do it again.
Right.
So her dedication to her work, her humility, everything was unbelievable. She was a very warm and lovely person.
Yeah. And she was somebody who took playback singing to the next level, because there was a stage when music producers were given a lot of credit, composers were given a lot of credit. In fact, even at the Filmfare Awards, until she put her foot down, playback singers were not given the same sort of credit. She changed all that.
That's very true, very true. She fought for the musician side from the perspective of the singers, the music directors, ultimately the musicians and writers, songwriters and everything. That fight was carried on again by Javed Saab and others, but she definitely started it with her insistence on a percentage that the music singers should also get, the music directors. She had started that movement. That's very true.
And she was also an international celebrity in that sense. I mean, yes, Bollywood appealed to people of the subcontinent certainly, and some other parts of the world as well. But she was internationally accepted, whether in the United Kingdom or in France or elsewhere, as being the embodiment, in a sense, of Bollywood and of an art form which she represented.
Absolutely correct. All over the world, people, they may not know anyone else. Lata Mangeshkar, they will always know. Lata Mangeshkar's voice has haunted them, entertained them over, 6-7 decades. Amazing, absolutely amazing. Everyone knows.
Could you tell us a little bit about her struggle to be accepted? Because when she started out, there were those who wrote her off saying that she didn't have the voice to do it. But then that voice is, I mean, it sort of defines India now, doesn't it? But it's always been a struggle when she started out until she had her first hit. And then after that, she came to define every decade of Hindi cinema.
I think it will always be that way with great singers. She proved that adversity would not stop her. She started at such a young age, and she fought her way through in that sense, that she refused to give up. She continued and proved finally that she had the talent, and those who have the talent will always come through. And what a way she came through, right at the top, and stayed at the top all the way. And that's also a struggle, by the way, and that you can't easily, you can get to the top sometimes and then you can fall away. But she kept at it, kept at it. She was relentless in her work, did not show it in any way, but she did it, and she continued to do it all the way. It has to be something inside her, something God-given as well, but something from inside her also fought so hard.
Mr. Sippy, I don't know if you can see this on your screen right now, but the flame is about to be lit, that the funeral pyre is about to be set alight. This is the end of the journey for Lata Mangeshkar, but her memory will always be so much a part of everything that is India.
Adinath ji.
यशस्त्र विदुच्छुद्य वर्तते कामकारकः न शर्धिमवाप्नोति न सुखं न पराङ्गते तस्माच्छास्त्रं प्रमाणं ते कार्याकारे व्यवस्थितौ ज्ञात्वा शास्त्रविधानोक्तं कर्म कर्तुमिहार्हसि
भावुक पल ये देखिए, सेना के जवान सैल्यूट करते हैं, देखिए राष्ट्रीय सम्मान देते हैं।
This is truly a heartbreaking moment, not only for the family, for all of us.
भारतरत्न लता मंगेशकर यांना दत्तकीची पहिलीची सलामी देऊन या ठिकाणी अंतिम विदाई घोषणा केली जाते. बँड वर्षाचा या
शरीर